Westplex 107.1, good to the very last note. That's what Shelley always says. Shelley says,
I do say that. Thank you, Brad.
Why do you come in so early in those songs?
I'm sorry?
Why don't you let those songs play all the way out? This is Shelley. Why don't you let those songs play all the way out? Why do you come in before the song's over?
Well, I do say that. Why do you do that, Brad?
Hey, because I'm a disc jockey and I can do those kind of things. Oh, we're moving and grooving.
Order 253. Come on down.
Here. Hold on a minute. Bring that up so early in the morning. Well, here we go.
Guest number 290 orders now. Ready, please? Guest number 290.
Guess number 290.
I have to say that's one of my favorites, although it does get obnoxious when they're really busy. And you're trying to have a conversation, and then he comes over the mic, and he's very pronounced.
Let's go to Freddy's. If you ever eat at Freddy's, they have, you take your order, and on your receipt, there's a number, and then they call the number. And sometimes the guy and or gal on the microphone can be very obnoxious to the point where it's like, try to carry on a conversation, and like every 30 seconds, yes, number 289, yes, your food is ready. Come on up.
Indeed.
Well, Shelley, it's a holiday. What are you and I doing here?
Well, we're driving people to work because not everybody is observing the holiday.
Yeah.
Only the bankers. And it's a regional holiday.
Regional? No, it's a national holiday.
Well, according to one of my electronic sources, it's a regional holiday.
Regional as in the United States of America, if you want to look at it that way.
Then that must be it.
Yes, it's and by the way, do you realize that the state workers get a second president? As a matter of fact, I think the state workers get 3 President's Days. I think we went through this last year.
They get Martin Luther King.
No. I'm talking
President's Day and George Washington.
No. They get Harry Truman too.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, state workers get Harry Truman's birthday.
Aww.
I'm telling you. It was a friend of mine.
I think they should have a Brad and Shelley holiday.
A friend of mine years ago told me that when you get hired by the state, I don't know if this is still true or not, when you get hired by the state, when you make it through probationary, which is like, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks or something like that, if you can show up every day and, you can stay awake all day long, you get the job. You get 26 vacation days right off the get-go. 26 days off. So essentially you get more than a month off to start. You get 2 weeks vacation, plus you get all the crazy holidays, like the day after Thanksgiving.
The federal government's not like that.
Then you get 3 President's Days. Not 1, not 2, but 3. 3. Count them, By the way, we talked about this last week, and this was a big deal over the weekend. There was a lot of chatter about this, about the Trump with the make the government buildings great again. And I learned an interesting term, trad-arc.
What is it?
Trad-arc.
B-R-A-D?
No, trad, T-R-A-D, trad-arc.
Okay.
That's what he wants to do, but yet that was what one of the people, the reporters, called it, trad-arc.
Traditional architecture.
Exactly, traditional architecture. And I kept hearing this woman on the show I was listening to. She was talking about Trump doing this with trying to make what his deal is. He says that the federal buildings have gotten too boring, and that we need to go back where we built these beautiful buildings with domes. And I'm going like, come on, you know me. I mean, I'm going like, hey, just buy some double wides and stick them somewhere. By the way,
just buy a couple shipping containers. I'm good.
Exactly. Think about that.
Put them on top of each other.
Yes.
Put a set of stairs in.
Yes, exactly.
We're awesome.
Exactly.
We're golden.
Yeah, you build a couple storage containers that the shipping containers that have bathrooms in it. So in other words, and it's just modular. You just one day there's you clear the ground. The second day you put in all the plumbing and all the all the electrical feeds, and then the third day is you just drop those sucker into place, and the fourth day people go to work. It's simple as that. I mean, you got.
And then when you're tired of moving it, or you want to say like build a soccer park or something like that, all you have to do is have them come in and pick it up and move it somewhere else.
Boy, Shelley, you are good at this.
Thank you.
A couple things.
I speak Brad.
Have you looked at our list yet for this morning?
I have not.
Okay,
no.
well,
I will, though.
I've got a couple things on there, but I need to add a couple more, and I'll put that on there. And one of the interesting things to talk about is the Chinese hospital. I find this fascinating.
Okay.
And once again, it goes along with our situation is that, and remember, we talked about this before, and I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Excuse me.
God bless you.
The Empire State Building was built. Remember we looked at this? Because at first I don't think you believed me. The Empire State Building in New York City was built like in 1 year and 2 months from the start to them, putting the foundation in, putting all the steel piers into the ground, to topping out the Empire State Building. It took 1 year and 2 months, something like that. Maybe it's even shorter, maybe 1 year and a month and a half or something like that. So in other words, 13, 14 months from start to finish was done. Okay, you look around nowadays and things takes forever to build. It's like interstates. Like, this is sort of interesting. Do you know over in Illinois they shut down 255, completely shut it down between 64 and 5570 for like that? It's completely closed. You know why?
Maintenance?
They're going to rebuild it, but they figured it would cost less and be done quicker if they just completely shut it down, tore it out, and just rebuilt it, and then just open it back up again.
You know that, you don't know. I don't know if I've ever told you, but my mom used to date a gentleman. His name was Albert Hefkin, and he had Hefkin Construction. And his company is the one that built all the interstates in Illinois.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, my cousin, Fred Weber, he built all the interstates here in St. Louis.
Did he? Well, first of all, he's not your cousin, so stop it. So, of course, that automatically starts with BS.
You don't know Fred?
No.
I knew Fred because of the fact he used to have a helicopter.
Oh, yeah, there's always a subculture.
Yeah. No, they actually used it for flying around. And then there's and one of my other helicopter buddies who got arrested in Maryland Heights for landing his helicopter in Maryland Heights. Do you know that it's illegal in some cities to land a helicopter?
I would actually almost think that.
I can tell you a funny story about two pilots that I used to fly with who almost got arrested in Hays, Kansas, and there was actually a warrant out for their arrest for fleeing arrest.
For fleeing arrest.
Want me to
Why were they fleeing?
I'll tell the story next hour. It's actually sort of funny. Have you ever been to Hays, Kansas before?
I don't know if I have or not.
Hays, Kansas.
Is that part of the Johnson County, Kansas?
No. This is in the western part of Kansas. Then I haven't.
When
you're driving to Denver, Hays, Kansas is like,
No.
First off, once you get west of on 70, once you get about 50 miles west of Kansas City, it's just flat and boring. Far, far long ways. And what's sort of interesting is a lot of people don't realize this. It's like that all the way to Denver. And if you've ever driven before, people always think, oh, Denver, it's like the Mile High. You're in the Rockies. Nope, you're not quite in the Rockies yet. Denver's built right on the eastern side of the Rockies, but it's mainly flat. And once you get west of Kansas City, it's flat as a board all the way to Denver, and including most of Denver. And then when you go west, that's when you go up in the Rockies, and it gets really interesting. But Hays, Kansas is about 2/3 of the way across Kansas, and it's just nothing but fast food places and gas stations and motels. And that's literally all it is. There's nothing in Hays, Kansas. I don't know what the people do. I guess they're all farmers in that area because, Kansas is a huge farming area. Anyway.
That's like Goodland, Kansas, right?
I'm trying to think.
In the FAA, when you're naughty, they send you to Goodland, Kansas.
I'm trying to think if I've been to Goodland before. I think, isn't that on I-70 as well, too? It sounds familiar.
I don't know. I've never been there. I was always on the nice list.
Why do they send you to Goodland, Kansas? What's in Goodland? Is there an airport there?
I don't think there is anything in there.
So they send you there just to do nothing?
No, there must be an airport there, but yeah. Just because there's not an airport doesn't mean that we don't have equipment there. The FAA doesn't have equipment there.
Oh, I know.
That's true.
You've got equipment in Sauget. I see the guys over there fixing it all the time.
Yeah. They have to be careful because, some of that glitter has metallic flakes on it.
Yeah. And
when they sit there and they work on equipment, you don't want it to sit there and get in on the plug that you plug into the electricity.
Did you ever see some of the videos where people let their Mylar balloons go and they go up in the electric lines and they short out? You ever seen that?
I've never seen that.
Oh
no.
yeah. There's some videos of that on. I mean, there's videos of that on videos of everything on YouTube. But yeah, that's one of the interesting things. I saw a guy that accidentally let go of like a bunch of Mylar balloons, and they floated up into the electric lines, and they shorted out the electric lines. Big explosions. Seriously.
Oopsie.
Yeah, seriously, because they're conductive.
I said oopsie.
Yeah.
But we're not going to have helium anymore. So the Mylar balloons are
That's because
a moot point at this point,
we
right?
talked about that last week because of the environmentalists. You watch, I'm telling you, that's going to be the next thing. You're going to see already starting to see it. I've heard a couple different people talk about it, and I've read, and especially with Friday because of the fact that being Valentine's Day, because people are going like, and I read an article last week, like Monday last week, a week ago, where the guy's going like, what a waste. Helium is an endangered resource, and we're putting it into balloons that people give away on Valentine's Day. What a waste.
I got news for you, partner. Helium and balloons have been around for a really long time.
Yeah, but so have a lot of things.
And now it's an issue?
Well, so have a lot of things. The environmentalists jump onto it. Like, for example, we'll talk about this later. Do you know what they're getting upset about yesterday?
About what?
The environmentalists?
What?
Something happened with the president. We'll talk about it later.
Okay. All I know is that I went to Marshall's or TJ Maxx, one of the two, and I was looking for, I may have already talked about this, I was looking for a bag to put my notebook in,
Yeah.
To carry into businesses so I don't look like a schlep.
Right.
And all the purses, a good portion of the persons were PETA approved. You know what that did for me?
Whoa. They actually had little tags on them that said PETA approved?
Yes.
Literally?
You know what that did for me?
You didn't buy them?
No. I did not.
They actually had, you know what? You should have taken a picture of that. I would love to have seen that. PETA approved?
Well, I will because they do say PETA approved. And
is it like a tag
vegan,
on them? Is it a tag or is it like stamped on them?
It's a tag.
Man, I'm telling you.
I'm not lying. I like my fur coats. I like my leather purses. I like my leather boots. I could care less whether PETA approves of what I wear or not.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, boy.
What?
It just cracks me up, and you know what's sad about it is?
What?
It's like I'm going to go off on my not-for-profit kick.
Please don't.
Oh, about all these not-for-profits that we're not-for-profit, and the director's making $200,000 a year, driving around in a nice car, and I'm thinking like, yeah, not-for-profit, okay, works real well, not-for-profit meaning
we've had this conversation before.
That the people that run the not-for-profit, take all the money and none of it goes to where it's supposed to go. That
is not true.
It's true, not-for-profit. Yes, not-for-profit. Yep. Well, they can't show profit, so what do? They pay everybody on the place, outlandish sums of money, and
they put it towards their programs, and then they pay their executives and employees.
Read the Post-Dispatch over the weekend, and read Tony Messenger's column, and
I like him.
Yeah, well, read it, and then tell me what you think, and we'll talk about it again. Okay, we got to take a break.
Okay.
It is 6:18. Westplex 107.1, Backstreet Boys, larger than life. Every time I hear the Backstreet Boys are in sync, I never think of them the same way anymore since I watched that documentary on Lou Pearlman. You know who he is?
I do not.
Lou Pearlman. I can't talk this morning. Lou Pearlman is the guy who put together the Backstreet Boys and then NSYNC, and he turned out to be an incredible con man. And actually got sent to jail and actually died in jail.
Well, that's sad.
But he didn't pay them.
Oh, he didn't pay them?
No. It's a fascinating story that, and with one of the interesting parts of it is he starts the Backstreet Boys and they become hugely successful. And then behind their backs, no pun intended, he starts NSYNC, but yet the Backstreet Boys heard that he was doing this, and they confronted him, and he goes, no, I'm not doing that. Nothing to do with me. And yet he'd already hired all these guys and was already auditioning them and are actually recording them in the whole bit. And what he did was, it's a fascinating documentary. What he did was he put himself on legally he put himself as the sixth member of both of the groups, that he was actually one of the members of the groups. That way he made more money because of the fact that he got paid royalties on the concerts and things like that, even though he was never on the stage.
Kind of sounds like Blame It on the Rain. Who was that?
And one of the interviews, and I can't remember this guy's name. He was big for a while, and then he just disappeared off the face of the earth. He was another guy, and his name was Aaron something or other. I'll have to look that up. Young, good-looking guy, solo artist, another guy that Lou Pearlman hired. And he told him, he said, hey, he says, I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to let you stay at my mansion in Los Angeles. And he had this great big mansion.
Creepy alert.
Well, no. It didn't turn out like that. He let him stay at this mansion, and he was there for like a year. And one day, somebody called from the company and said, you have to leave today. And he go, what do you mean I have to leave today? You have to leave today. Well, the reason he had to leave today was it was being foreclosed on, that he'd put money down in this place, and he'd never made a payment. He put I don't know how much down, a couple $100,000 on this mansion, and moved this Aaron guy in and never paid any of the mortgage payments. And then all of a sudden one day, the bank essentially said, okay, look, if we don't get any money by such and such a date, we're going to forcibly foreclose, and we're going to send the sheriff over there, and we don't care who's in there. They're getting booted out, and we're taking the place. And that's what happened.
Was he still in prison at the time? Alive?
No. And boy, it's a fascinating story because all his life.
So what's it called?
Well, it was a 2020 on ABC. It was a 2020 investigation, and I saw it. It's on. I believe you can find it on YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah, it might be on one of the, since ABC's owned by Disney. It might be. Are they still
on the Disney Channel?
Yeah, it's someplace. If you find it, I'll look during the next break and I'll tell you where it's at. But it's really fascinating, and keep in mind the second generation, the NSYNC generation, that was Justin Timberlake. And by the way, I was putting together one of our shows from last week, putting it up on the podcast, and I called him Justin Timberland. So I do know, if you listen to that and go like, that guy's so dumb, he calls Justin Timberlake Justin Timberland. Yeah, I did realize it was a slip of the tongue, which I do about 42 times in a good hour. In a bad hour, it's more like 80 times.
That's true.
Yeah, Shelley knows. Hey, time for a break. It is 6:30. Westplex 107.1. 6:37. It is a Monday morning, a holiday Monday morning. It's BSN Morning. I am Shelley. She is Brad.
That's right.
There she is. Weather yesterday, boy, was it beautiful or what?
I hope that you took advantage of it.
I worked yesterday, but I was outside.
Good.
I worked outside.
Good for you, because it was a beautiful day.
I drilled a hole and water came out.
I'm sorry?
I drilled a hole and water came out.
Oh, okay. Good for you.
No, bad for me.
You're so big.
I drilled a hole and water came out of someplace it wasn't supposed to have water, and it ruined my day. But that's a whole other story. Complete forecast is coming up. I will hint at it and tell you it's going to be about 51 or 52 today. But it's going to be mostly cloudy. Maybe we might see just a tad bit of sun this afternoon, but probably not. Okay, you looked it up. We were talking about this last hour of the guy behind Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. And you found, I've never seen this one before. This is on YouTube. It's what, a YouTube original?
Yep, that's what it said.
What's it called?
Everything you need to know about whatever Perlman. I don't have it in front of me.
I was going to say, that's a great title. Everything you need to know about Perlman. Okay.
Well, I don't have it in front of me.
Well, what I saw was the ABC thing, and if you go on YouTube, you can find it, but it's divided into sections. So you have to watch part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, that kind of stuff. And that one is called The Hitman from Pop to Prison. And it's a 2020 documentary. There's also another one on here, financial crisis. There's a 60 Minutes one on him. There's another story about, just on ABC News, the swindler behind two of the biggest boy bands in history. Was Aaron Carter abused by Perlman? I mean, it's pretty nasty stuff.
So this was called The Boy Band Con,
yes.
The Lou Pearlman story.
There you go, yes. The official trailer, and it's a YouTube original. I will highly suggest that you watch it, because to me it was fascinating because of the thing that I mean, and not only, what was interesting was this guy talking about, having Well, I won't say that. Before he got into this, you know how he originally started making money, how he originally conned people?
Don't have any idea.
Helium balloons. And
That's really kind of funny, actually. Not funny. Well, okay.
We're not
it's
talking.
Not funny,
we're not talking.
It is kind of funny because we were talking about helium yesterday.
Well, we're not talking about the helium that the balloons that you buy at the store. We're talking like the Goodyear blimp kind of balloons. He did.
Okay.
He did those promotions for companies, and the first one he got, he pitched this to I can't remember who it was, big company, and they liked the idea of having like a competition to the Goodyear blimp. And he said, "Oh yeah, I've done this for a long time," and he'd never done it. He didn't even have a balloon, and he's pitching.
Make it till you make it, baby.
Yeah, he's pitching his company, and they signed the contract. And they gave him a big check, and he didn't have a balloon. And then he went out and he tried to make a balloon, and he made one, and it crashed. It's a fascinating story. I mean, it's like sometimes it's like, man, this guy just doesn't stop, But and once again, it's one of these things where it's like, how did this go on so long? It's just, one of those things. You just sort of go like, how in the world can somebody get away with this for so many years? And
it's really funny because there are people that can get away with stuff like that for years, like you said. And then there are people like me who has instant karma.
Well, we know of a story that unfortunately is still unfolding in the broadcasting business of a guy who is an absolute positive con man, and unbelievable con man.
Yes.
To the point where it's still sort of bizarre because the story has not totally played out. And to the point where, Shelley knows the story, to the point where he tried to get me involved. And it was like, whoa, remember from the first phone call, remember I told you the very first time
you did.
I said, you know how it is when somebody talks to you and you start feeling like, okay,
the hairs on the back of your neck start kind of raising.
This is not a good situation. This guy is 99.99999% BS, and not like BS here, like not Brad and Shelley stuff, but like BS. And unfortunately, that's the way it turned out. But, and it ruins it for all of us because then he gets the publicity or the positive publicity, and the negative stuff hasn't hit yet. And who knows if it will, because probably everybody's afraid to talk about it. But that's a whole nother story. So, right?
Yep. Way to be cryptic, Brad. Bring it on.
Whatever you say, Shelley. We are. You know what? I'm. Before I go on the air this morning, I'm punching the button, listening to other radio stations. The B team's on almost all the other morning shows because the A team, the regular guys.
They've got the day off.
They got the day off, and the B team's on most of the other radio stations. And I just want you to know that we don't do that. That with Brad and Shelley, that the B team is on every morning. So
hey, we're the A team, dude.
The B team is here 5 days a week, no matter what the holiday is. 640 Flex 107.1, 653. It is BS in the morning. I am B, she is S. Did I get that right? Did I get that wrong?
We're interchangeable like that, so it's good. It's all good.
I would hardly call you and I interchangeable.
We totally are.
No, that's...
I mean, people, especially in like the networking world, they're like, if I'm not there, then you're there.
No, I don't agree with that at all. We are.
Oh, absolutely.
No, not at all.
Ask Nina D'Angelo.
Who?
Nina D'Angelo.
You mean Nina?
Yeah, call her that and see how long you last.
I know two Ninas and a Nina. No, I know I got that wrong.
Two Ninas and a Nina.
Two Ninas and a Nina. Nina D'Angelo, who's the O'Fallon Chamber of Commerce, she calls it's Nina. And most people who have that name, Nina, it's Nina, right? But yet
yes.
she's Nina.
She is Nina, and she is definitely a Nina.
Well, how do you end up with a name that's the same name as everybody else, and yet you pronounce it differently? Do you just wake up one day and go like, today I'm not Brad, I'm Broad? And people would say, but your name's spelled B-R-A-D. Yeah, but it's pronounced Broad, not Brad, Broad. How long do you think
I
that?
don't know. I think she's been called Nina her whole life.
Do you think I could get away with that? I'm going to start calling myself. From now on, I'm not Brad, I'm Broad.
Yeah, don't do that. That's silly.
Why is it silly?
Just because then it's like you're identifying as a woman. And trust me when I tell you,
I would never do that.
you don't identify as a woman.
Why would you say that?
Because you don't think like a woman.
Man, I heard some things over the weekend that, oh my God, it sort of bothered me. But if I talk about it, I'll get in trouble.
Okay.
It was a doctor talking about what's happening to men. And it was
the demasculinity of men.
Exactly. I mean, and not just essentially, making the comment. I mean, having scientific proof of it. I mean, it's just like, whoa. It was sort of spooky. And essentially what he was sort of referring to is the decline of the human race.
How so? That's a stretch.
Less people to
procreate with.
Exactly. I mean, and we laugh about that, but remember, I read this interesting article and heard a couple different interesting things about the Cahokia Indians right across the river, the Cahokia Mounds.
Cahokia Mounds.
You can still go over to the
that
parks
place.
over there, and there's all sorts of different ideas of what happened to them. Supposedly, they just disappeared. And there's people throughout history, various cultures, and certain people that were tribes, or whatever you want to call them, that they built this empire, and then it's gone. It just disappeared. And, like people walked away from it. All these ruins that they find that people once upon a time, this was where they lived, and this was their house, and then all of a sudden one day everybody was gone. What happened?
They came back as zombies.
Anyway, he was talking about the and man, it was actually pretty fascinating. And once again, this was not like some cranky weird guy. This guy was an MD and was giving all this scientific proof about how men have become not men anymore. And he talked about the aspect of of culture, the fact that look at you and I grew up with John Wayne and Robert Mitchum, and and tough guy, guys like that, Charles Bronson. Okay, name me somebody today who is like that, who is a big star. Name me one person that's like a tough guy. That's not, and you could say Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, once again, he's sort of the end of that generation. It started with like the John Waynes and the people like that, and it ended with the Arnold Schwarzeneggers and the Sylvester Stallones and even Bruce Willis, who are all getting up there in years. Who's the next generation of that? There is none.
Well, there's Brad Pitt.
Nah, but he's not a tough. He's not a tough guy because a lot of the roles he plays is he's not a tough guy. He's he plays some roles where he gets a little bit edgy, but not like a John Wayne kind of guy. Where if you
there's
say
Mel Gibson.
Once again, look at him. He's the end of that. He's the end of that era.
Yeah, I don't even know. This is terrible to say, but I don't even know who the new stars are.
What?
I know.
What?
Can you believe it? I'm stuck in the generation with, Sylvester Stallone
but see,
and
once
Mel
again,
Gibson and
that's the end. That's
Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm in that generation.
But that's the end of an era, and that's what he was talking about. Yeah. He was talking about that the role models are we've talked about this before, that in television, the sitcoms, the guy's always the stupid person now. Like you go King of Queens and all the different shows, and the guy is, the woman's the smart one. She's the one that's got her life under control, and and you know what? And I'm not saying that's not necessarily true, because I always say whatever a man can do, a woman can do better. But the idea being is that as media shows us, that's what society sort of emulates, is the fact that if media shows us that guys are stupid and they're bumbling and they're idiots and they're lucky they can keep a job, and if it wasn't for their wife, that they wouldn't they wouldn't be able to get up in the morning, they wouldn't know where their clothes were, they wouldn't know where their toothbrush was, they wouldn't even know where their car was, because the woman is the one that's got everything under control and the man's just a bumbling idiot.
Well, I wouldn't go about the bumbling idiot part, but women do take care of their men.
Look at Tim the Tool Man. Once again, the whole joke in that was he did a TV show.
Yeah, but that was years ago.
Yeah, but still, one of those things. Okay,
it's like Everybody Loved Raymond. I don't like that show.
But once
I've never
again,
liked that show because he was the most whiny man I have ever heard in my life.
But the women were all smart and the men were all dumb.
Yeah, but those are going back like in the 90s.
Yeah, but still, that's still. But that's the point he was talking about. This doctor was talking about the fact that it started in the 90s. That's exactly what he was saying. That was the decline of because Bruce Willis started the original movie Die Hard was back in the 80s. Yes, yeah, but even him, he's not necessarily a tough guy. Most of the roles he takes now is sort of like comedic kind of roles.
Oh, well, that's true. Maybe he just is tired of being serious.
And look at like Pacino, Al Pacino, a tough guy.
Yes.
Who's the other one that he was paired with in Heat? Remember that movie? One of the best shootout scenes ever in a movie.
Baldwin?
No, not Alec Baldwin. Al Pacino and De Niro. Pacino and De Niro. Right. Two tough guys. I mean, they're like way up there. It's an end of an era. Anyway, we'll move on. 7:01. Westplex 107.1, it's BS in the Morning. Our website is bsinthemorning.show. The station website is westplex1071.com. Shelley, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm fine, Brad. How are you doing today?
Do me a favor. Call me right now on your phone.
Why?
Just call me. Call me on the phone.
Okay. Hold on.
Okay. Shelley's going to call me on the phone. 7:06 weather today, high 51. Unfortunately, little or no sun today. Pretty much going to be all cloudy today. But hey, at least it's not 21. It's going to be 51. Shelley, hi. I'm okay. Thanks. Okay. Got that done.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay.
Wait till I see you today. Am I going to see you today, Brad?
No, you're never going to see me today. What are you talking about?
I'm going to make sure I see you today.
We're in the same studio. We're looking back and forth at each other. Okay. I heard this story over the weekend, and I thought to myself, this can't be true. You know who Pamela Sue Anderson is, right?
I do.
You know who John Peters is? She just
broke up with her husband.
Well, no, that's what I was going to talk about. You know who John Peters is?
I don't know who he is, but it's evidently her husband.
Well, was a famous producer. He produced A Star Is Born, a bunch of stuff like that. Sort of a Hollywood socialite kind of, pretty boy, very popular in Hollywood culture, okay? The story is that both of them were single, and he was actually engaged to somebody, and the lady he was engaged to was going to move in with them, and Pamela Sue Anderson, who he's known for 30 years, calls him up and says, "Hey, John, I want you to marry me." Okay? And he goes, "Pam, what?" And she says, "Yes, John, this is Pamela Sue Anderson. I want you to marry me." So he went like, "Wow, I've always wanted to marry you. I've known you for 30 years, and I've always had this thing for you. Let's get married." So they get married on ML King Day last month. And then after they get married, she comes to him and says, "John, I'm having some financial problems. I need you to pay off some bills." And he says, "Yes? How many bills do you have?" "Well, not a lot, but I owe $300,000. And he went, "What? You do what?" "Okay, I'll pay the bills." So he pays the bills off. And then she decides, I didn't want to marry you anyway. And she files for divorce.
Shame on her.
That was in 12 days from start to finish. Now, depending upon whose side of the story you hear, she claims that he's the one that called her up and said, "Oh, Pam, I can't go on without you. Let's get married." And that she's the one that decided and she told him that she had some financial difficulties, and he said, "I'll pay the bills. Just tell me what you need, and I'll take care of it." So and then supposedly, I can't remember who claims it, which one claims the other one. They claim that they had the marriage license, but they never filed it because what you do is typically, you get the marriage license, and then whoever marries you, like if it's a justice of the peace, he signs off on it. If it's an officiant, a priest, rabbi, pastor, whatever, he signs off on it, and then he files that with the county, or in some cases the city. Like the city of St. Louis, you get married in the city, you file it with the city. But if you get married like in like in Bridgeton or something like that, you'd file it with St. Louis County. If you get married like any place in St. Charles, you file it with the city, the county of St. Charles. And so they now have this big split going back and forth where they're finger pointing at each other, saying that, like, no, that's not how it happened. Matter of fact, it's interesting. Saturday, a source to Anderson said that the actress was the one with the remorse. She was homesick for her ranch in British Columbia and had married Peters only because she was, quote, very open immediately after returning from a month-long cleanse in India. And he treated her like a princess.
Again, let me just say, shame on her. I mean, and if you sit there and think about it, so 300,000 would be, like $1 million to us.
Oh, $1 million, try about 10 million to us.
So 300,000 in her world is like $3,000 credit card maxed out to the limit.
Well, it's sort of interesting. If you look at her history, I don't know how many times she's married. Let me see if I can find her real quick here. Pamela
Was she
Sanderson.
like Liz Taylor?
Oh, she's been. I'm trying to see. I can't. There's not much on her on Wikipedia, but I know she was married to Tommy Lee twice.
Yes.
Yes. I think she's been married. I don't know how many times. Boy, and over the weekend, and sometimes. I get into things. I watched, and I did it like, because I'm ADD. I didn't sit down and watch the entire thing, but I watched it like in 2 or 3 different sections. I watched a Rodney Dangerfield biography, and man, that was fascinating. All sorts of things about him that I didn't know. For example, when he was a young guy, he tried very hard to be a comedian, and he failed, and he quit. And became, back in the day, an aluminum siding salesman. And he sold aluminum siding and was very, very, very successful at it. But he would go home and write jokes at night. Almost every night he'd go home and write jokes. And he had like all these jokes, and he put them in a duffel bag. He had pages and pages and pages and pages of jokes. And then he got back into comedy like 12 years later when he was like 40.
Yeah, his shtick was he gets no respect.
Get no respect. So he married a gal who was a singer, a very successful singer at the time, and then she decided she didn't want to be in show business anymore. So then things didn't go well, and they got divorced. And then things went better for both of them. They got remarried again. They had a child when they were married the first time. They had a child the second time they were married, and then she died. I didn't know that.
Oh, I'm so sorry for that.
And his kids were young. I think they were like 11 and 7 when she died. And that's when his career had really taken off. And, he was, doing Las Vegas and the whole bit. And he decided that he was going to be a good father. So he decided that he was going to stay in New York all the time. So that's when he started a club called Dangerfields, which became a very, very successful comedy club. And the reason he started it was that he could be with his kids during the day. And at night, he'd have like, a babysitter or someone who would come in and watch the kids, and he would go out and perform at Dangerfields. And then he was there during the day for the kids, be able to take them to school, things. I'm going like, whoa, I never knew that part of him, and to the point where one of the things he was very proud of, and I didn't realize this either, he was very upset because of the fact that it was very, very, very hard for him to break into comedy, and he decided that he was going to make it much easier for the next generation. He was going to support the next generation of comics. So he would have all these comics, and they had these segments of this biography where he was introducing these comics for the first time at his comedy club, Dangerfields. Jim Carrey, Tim Allen. I mean, the names went on and on and on and on. And all of these people that he gave their big break to at his comedy club in New York. The people that, he all felt that, that these were the next generation of comics, and he wanted to give them a sort of a step up to a career in comedy that he didn't get. It was a fascinating biography. And
it sounds like it.
And he died at like 80. I mean, and near the end, like he was on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and the last time he was on the Tonight Show, and right after the Tonight Show, he had another stroke. And yet he kept going. He was in the hospital and kept going. But you know what's interesting, and it's interesting, one of my all-time favorite movies, and they talked about how this exposed him to a new generation of fans. If I had to give one of my top 5 movies of all time, you know what it would be? He was in it.
What would it be?
Back to School. You ever seen that movie before?
That's with Rodney Dangerfield.
Right, and it is such a good movie. And matter of fact, it has a very, 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 very young Robert Downey Jr. in it. Matter of fact, I think he's
really?
I think he's like 17 or 18 years old when he's in the movie. Young kid. Like a young kid. And he's really good in this movie. This is before he went and got screwed up on drugs and stuff like that. But anyway, if you get a chance, it's a fascinating story. Talking about his life and the whole bit. And I had no idea about the fact that, because he'd always kid about his wife, but then he got remarried again. And must be nice when you got money and fame. The lady he was married to, I can't remember her name, Joan, I believe it was.
It would be Mrs. Dangerfield.
Well, I don't know. I don't think she took his name. And that's not his real name, too. Did the story about that? How he got the name? His name was like Jacob Cohen or something like that. And his dad was a vaudeville actor, a vaudeville performer, and his name was like something Roy Price. So he took his dad's stage name, and he was like Jim Price or something like that, and he decided that that things weren't going well for his career, and he thought it might be the name because people might remember him for his father. So he was at some club someplace, and he's mentioned to the owner of the club, I think I need a new name, and the guy goes, okay, I'll give you a new name. You're Rodney Dangerfield. And it stuck, and that's what he did. He changed his name to Rodney Dangerfield.
That's how I knew him.
Yeah, well, it was fascinating, and like I said, I never knew anything about the fact that his wife dying and him moving back to New York and raising his kids. I'm like, man, you hear about all these Hollywood stars that have kids and that they never see. He was like the exact opposite of that.
Yep.
Hey, we're gonna take a break. We will be right back. It is 7:16. Westplex 107.1. Yes, we're ready for it right now. 7:20. It's BS in the Morning. Website is bsinthemorning.show. Shelley, the coronavirus, the deal about how about these people that are trapped on the cruise ship? Have you heard this story about?
I have heard that, and they are still on there.
Yes, and they get 3 meals a day. Somebody comes and knocks on the door and open the door, and they're like in their hazmat gear, and they give them the food, and then they close the door, and then they put the plates out in the hallway, and then they get another meal. Unbelievable, but.
They better get a refund.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, a refund or whatever. There's going to be lawsuits over this. Anyway, the coronavirus started in Wuhan, China. And they have a lack of medical facilities in Wuhan, China. So
Didn't they build one?
In 10 days.
Yeah.
They built a hospital. Now think about that in the United States, okay?
That's 24/7 building.
Yes, but in the United States, if let's say somebody decided they wanted to build a hospital in, let's take a place that doesn't have a hospital. Let's take Maryland Heights. Okay, Maryland Heights. Excuse me.
It does have a hospital, actually.
No, it doesn't.
It has DePaul.
That's in Bridgeton.
Oh, potato. Anyway, go on.
Okay, so let's say they're going to build a hospital in Maryland Heights. Okay. First off, they'd have to have a city council meeting, and then they'd have to go to the state for a certificate of need or whatever the heck it is, and then they'd go to the city council meeting, and all the people would show up and complain, we don't want that hospital in Maryland Heights. We don't want it.
See, I don't know if that's necessarily the case, if that's what would happen. Because when something goes awry, and if we had the outbreak that China did or does, we would be called to action.
I disagree with that, and I'll tell you the reason why.
Why?
I learned from a guy who was in public office. I won't mention his name. He's no longer in public office, but I don't want to embarrass him. And I was kidding him about the NIMBYs. You know what a NIMBY is?
I don't. Do I want to?
Yeah, not in my backyard. People are always
yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want that. He says there's a new generation, and they're called caves. I go, caves? He says, yes. CAVE. Citizens Against Virtually Everything. And I sort of laughed. He goes, no, I'm serious. He says, if we decided that we were going to, like let's say the city decided we were going to buy everybody's house, but we were going to buy it for $400,000 more than it's worth, people would show up at City Hall going, I can't believe you're going to do this. I don't want to leave my house. I love my house. You can't have it. I don't care if you want to pay $400,000 more. It's my house. You can't do it. Leave me alone. Don't bother me. Citizens Against Virtually Everything. If they,
Well, they did that in Maryland Heights and Bridgeton.
What do you mean they did what? Citizens Against Virtually Everything?
No, they took people's houses.
No, not in Maryland Heights. We're talking about the airport. Yeah, it's a different thing. But no, the point I'm trying to make is that...
What is the point, Brad?
Well, once again, it's gotten to the point where if you try to do anything nowadays, it takes forever because of the fact that people got to protest and people, you got to get permits. And here in China, they build this hospital start to finish 10 days. 10 days. Can you imagine that?
They had to do something, and that was probably the most viable option. But
think about it. Okay, think about it. Is like, remember the earthquake that happened in California? I don't know, was it 20 years ago? They called it the Northridge earthquake, and there were parts of the interstate that were just totally destroyed.
I remember that.
And they let the contracts, they bid the contracts in like 2 or 3 days, and they essentially gave the contractor like a bonus for I think it was like a couple $100,000, a day for every day that he could, bring the thing in early. They set a date. They go, hey, here's your date, completion date, and for every day you get ahead of this completion date, we're going to give you a couple $100,000. Okay, they built the interstates like in 2 months. And you look at some of the projects around here, it's like, okay, how long did it take them to build the Page extension from 270 out into St. Charles County? And then remember, it was phase 1,
years.
And then phase 2, and then phase 3, and now they're even talking about phase 4. You know what phase 4 is?
Does it take it all the way out to Wentzville?
Phase 4 would take it all the way out to, it would take it through Lake St. Louis. So as it ends right now, it sort of ends right there at 4064 there in Lake St. Louis.
It does, yes.
And phase 4 would essentially take Highway N and completely change it all around, and it would loop back into, I guess, Highway Z and go into Wentzville. So that would be like phase 4. So in other words, it would cross over Highway 40 there at Lake St. Louis, and then it would continue all the way out into Wentzville and essentially come up Z.
So you can get off easily and go to Sugar Fire.
I don't think that's the reason they're building the highway.
That's exactly the reason.
So you can get the Sugar Fire. But the point I'm making
Fire Wentzville's in the house. Whoop, whoop.
is 10. Here you're giving the promotion. They won't spend a penny with us.
That's just another conversation, Brad.
See, and once again, there's a perfect example is they get free publicity. It's like, God, don't even talk to me about this. It's like the Krispy Kreme story. You know the Krispy Kreme story?
No.
My routine was I used to, when my kids were younger, I'd get home in the afternoon and I'd cook dinner for my kids. Okay, and I had a TV set in the kitchen. And I would turn on, because my kids would get out of school like 2:30, 3 o'clock, or 3:30, whatever. And I would start cooking at like 4 in the afternoon. This is my routine. I'd get home, cook it, for 4 in the afternoon, cook my kids dinner. And I'd sit there and I'd watch Oprah. And the one day they had the guy.
I can so see you doing that too.
I did. I used to watch her every day. And
I can see. That doesn't surprise me.
They had the guy on from Krispy Kreme. Okay. The CEO of Krispy Kreme.
Was this before or after they filed bankruptcy?
Oh, this was when they were like high-flying company and, Krispy Kreme and the whole bit. And he's, and Oprah was saying, well, how did you get to be so big? And you know what he said? Well, partly because of the fact that we did this deal with radio stations where we'd have our staff go and drop off dozens of donuts at the radio stations in the morning, and they would give us free publicity. Hey, the guy from Krispy Kreme's here. Hey, the gal from Krispy Kreme here. And he'd laugh, and he'd go like, those guys were so stupid, we never had to buy any advertising on their stations because they gave away free advertising to us. All we had to do was just give them donuts. Ha, ha, ha. I thought to myself, butthead.
That really stuck in your craw, didn't it?
Man, did it ever. So I got back.
That was how many years ago?
Oh, I got back at him. You know how I got back at him?
You didn't patronage their business?
No, just the opposite. I would never, ever, 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 ever talk about them on the air. But A friend of mine told me the story about the fact that he said that if you go to Krispy Kreme and you get one donut, they'll give it to you for free. And I'm going like, yeah, right. So I did that for like 2 or 3 years. I never paid for a donut for like 3 years. I just drive through the drive-through. And I'd tell you exactly what I got. I'd get a chocolate one, or chocolate covered with sprinkles, whatever they call it, round donut, cake donut with chocolate on sprinkles on top of it. I'd go through the drive-through. I'd order one donut. I'd go up to the window. They'd hand it to me. Hey, it's on us. Thanks. Bye. And I'd leave. I'm telling you.
Well, that's good to know because I've been kind of craving some Krispy Kreme.
But you know what the problem is?
And they've got that new one over on.
Yeah,
it's not new anymore, but they've got that new one over on the Rivers Mall Drive.
Yeah, but they've gotten smaller and they're like $1.50 a piece. It's like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, but they're hot and fresh.
No, you know what?
Fresh.
You're buying their publicity. Okay, take that $1.50 and go to Schnucks. And or like I did last week, I went to Schnucks and they had boxes of Little Debbie's, like 10 Little Debbie's cakes.
Yeah,
in a box.
You were in Nirvana. You even posted it on Facebook.
$1 a box. I bought 5 boxes. 5 boxes for $5. You go to Krispy Kreme.
I can see you
$5.
rooting around in that little basket that's got all the Little Debbie's in there and picking out your favorites.
But do you know what?
People coming over to you and going, hey, that's my box.
Okay, you remember that picture I put up in there? Remember how many things? It was like a big monstrous display that had all the Little Debbie's, and they were $1.99 normally, and if you bought 5, they were $1 a piece. Okay, so I bought 5, they were $5. Okay, I went to that Schnucks the next day. Every last one of them was gone. I even asked the guy. I go, hey.
That's because you posted it on Facebook.
But I didn't put the store. It was only on one store, and I'm not going to tell you which store it was. And I said to one of the guys who worked there, I go, hey, what happened to that little? Oh, we sold them out. I go, really? He says, yeah. He says, we put that display up the night before. He says, it didn't even last 24 hours. Sold every last one of them. Really?
Well, there are Little Debbie concierge, just like you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's $7.29.
So don't go to Krispy Kreme.
Okay, I'll go to the place that's got the donuts that are, but I like Krispy Kreme, Brad.
No.
But I like their regular Krispy Kremes.
Expensive, overpriced, small, not very good. Buy local. Buy like, who's the guy what's the place there on Bryan Road? You know what I'm talking about? Was it Heaven Sent? Is that what it is? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, Heaven Sent Donuts, yes.
Yeah. Go there instead. Don't go to Krispy Kreme.
That's female owned.
Well, that's even better. 7:30.
Yeah.
Westplex 107.1, BS in the Morning. She is Brad. I am Shelley. And our website is bsinthemorning.show. 7:39, heading for a high 51. We'll have the forecast coming up from our very own meteorologist, Jennifer
Wojcicki.
You do such a good job at that. I can't pronounce her name ever.
That's because I practiced at it. I mean, literally. I was like, I'd say her name and I'd listen to it and I'd say her name again because I really wanted to learn her name.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh my gosh, her life must be a living hell.
No, why would you say that? I think it's good.
Going through school with a name like I can't even say it now. Jennifer Wojcicki.
Do you know I still have people ask me what my real name is?
That's because you're in an industry that typically changes their name.
And the first time that happened to me years ago, I go, what? What's your real name? And I had somebody just like 2 weeks ago say, well, that's a fake name, isn't it? I go, no, it's not a fake name. I mean, it got to the point where I was kid people, yeah, my real name is Jim Smith, that kind of a deal, right? Why would you change your name like that? Although I do want
I don't know why people change their names.
That's on my list of, I'm going to change my name.
To what? Waldo Zarmiski?
No, I am going to change my name. I'm going to do it.
To what?
I'll tell you when I get it done. I'll show you the paperwork when I get it done.
Okay, Brad.
Do you know yesterday?
Whatever.
You know what happened yesterday?
What happened yesterday?
Depending upon which side of the political fence you're on, it was either the best thing in the world or it was the worst thing in the world.
What's that?
Daytona 500. Okay? Now, some people would say, well, that could be bad? Well, and how could people say it's great? Because you know who was the pace car?
Who?
Donald Trump in the presidential limousine.
No way.
Yep.
That's BS, Brad.
Oh, you don't believe me?
No, I don't.
You don't believe me?
No.
$20. No, let's make it good. $50. $50.
Okay.
Donald Trump in the presidential limousine was on the track at Daytona yesterday. And you say no, I say yes.
I say no.
Okay? Why don't you, we'll take, for those of you who are believers, the controversy is that people are upset because they claim it's tax dollars because of the fact that the presidential limousine is owned by the United States government, and that it was a waste of money, and that Donald Trump shouldn't have been there, and that it was ridiculous to have the presidential limousine known as the Beast out on the Daytona 500 course doing a lap in front of all the cars. And you say it didn't happen, and I say it did. So let's take a break, and why don't you Google it, and then next break we'll figure out where I get to pick up my $50 from you, okay?
Okay.
Because you done lost this bet.
I don't think so.
Okay, we'll just wait and see. 742. Westplex
Okay.
107.1. I played that just for Shelley because I feel bad that I just took $50 from her because I won the bet. You didn't believe me. The presidential limousine did the lap car at the Daytona 500 yesterday. Was that cool or what?
So picture this. Picture this question. This meme.
Okay, go ahead. Yep.
It's Alex Trebek.
Yes.
And we all know him.
Yes.
And the caption is, hold on, let me get it.
It's a meme,
Because
right?
I just sent it to you.
Yes.
It's hilarious.
Yes.
Alex, I'll take things that never happened for 500.
And that was the presidential limousine as or not the Indy, but the Daytona 500 pace car.
Yeah, but you never know if Trump was in there or not.
Oh, I didn't say he was in there, but that was I said the presidential limousine was the pace car at the Daytona 500 yesterday. And you went,
And you said President Trump was. You can't tell me that President Trump was in there.
He was in there.
Because you never see him get out of the truck, the car.
He was in there. He did
You don't know that?
He did the opening ceremony, and then he got in a limousine, and they drove around the track.
Well, I didn't see him get in the limousine.
But he was in the limousine. He was there. He was in the limousine. And by the way, did you see? This is going to be a weird thing when I say this. Okay, you being a woman, I've never worn high heels before. Okay, if you look at what's her name again? I always get
Melania.
Melania. I get Ivanka and Melania and all the A's mixed up. Okay, Melania. Okay, look at the picture. She's wearing white high heels.
Yes, she is.
They look like they're like 9-inch heels. Have you seen those?
They're called stilettos, and she can do that.
I mean, but am I exaggerating? Does it look like 9 inches? I mean, like to the point
They're
where
not 9 inches, but
Whoa.
they're probably 5.
Oh, I think more than that. Come on.
No.
You don't think?
No, I don't think so.
I mean,
But it was nice of you to see what I'd say to you. Women love men or anybody that comments on their shoes. So you're sitting there looking at her shoes.
because to me, it's like, okay, you know, my reaction was,
Blah, blah, blah.
no, my reaction was, how in the world do women do that?
It's an art form.
Oh, how do you walk like that?
It's no problem for me.
Okay, now.
I'm a superhero in stilettos. Thank you very much. Just like Shannon Norman. Shannon Norman Law.
Yeah.
She's a pit bull in stilettos.
Okay, I'm going to say something, and don't take any offense to this, okay? I'm also a structural kind of guy. Keep in mind that my dad was a civil engineer, right? He designed buildings, and my dad always over-designed things. I mean, that was just the way he was. If it took like let's say if he was building something and it took one 2x4, my dad would put in a 2x10. You know what I mean? He would always overbuild stuff. Our house that he built for us was literally, instead of having the wood floor joist, it had steel beams in it. You know, that's the way he built it. He just overbuilt stuff. Okay. How in the world do the heels don't break on women's shoes like that? And I'm not being rude saying, well, she's too much weight on those. I mean, they're just little tiny things. How do they not break?
Because they're proportionate to the angle
on
the footbed.
But still, you've got weight, And if you walk, you're pushing, when you walk, you're pushing back on your heel. So in other words, you're exerting force.
No, you're really not.
You're not putting your foot straight down. You're putting your foot sort of forward, and you're striding off of the heel when you're moving that foot from forward to backward. So in other words, when you put your foot out.
Given that it's easier to walk in a pair of tennis shoes,
yeah,
but they don't look twice as cool. They don't look hardly as cool.
But you get what I'm saying? I
wear heels every day, Brad. Yes, I get what you're saying.
But I'm thinking to myself, okay, structurally, how do they not break?
And they actually feel better if you if you have like a heel gel insert.
Well,
it's true.
You're missing what I'm saying. I mean,
I know what you're saying. I'm just ignoring it.
I'm saying that
that's what I'm doing.
There was a time.
The point is that you noticed her shoes, Brad.
Well,
that's the point.
Remember, there was a time in women's footwear where the heels were like, they were like high, but they were big, clunky, like the disco shoes. I'm talking about, like the platform
they're called
kind of shoes.
wedges.
No, not wedges, but they were like high heels, but instead of being a small little heel, they were like big and clunky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. But they weren't. I'm not talking about.
Big and clunky.
I'm not talking about wedges. I know what a wedge is. But once again, now those were like, okay, my dad would have designed those shoes. That would have been the shoes my dad designed, which would like never break.
They break because what happens is, because I used to have a pair of clogs, if you will, but they weren't. But they were. You used to slip your foot in, but what happened was the leather that was attached to the sole, actually it was nailed. They were nailed in all the way around, and the nails came out. The nails popped out.
I got a nail gun. I could have fixed that for you.
Well, I have what is that stuff called?
Super
the stuff
glue?
That epoxy.
Super glue.
Super glue would probably not do it, but epoxy would.
Okay.
That was so much fun, Brad.
You know what?
What?
The doctor I heard over the weekends are right. Here I am discussing women's shoes.
And doing it quite well, thank you very much. But you just proved my point that men look at women's shoes.
Demasculization of America, where I'm talking about women's shoes on the radio. Now, good thing this isn't a sports station because they would throw me off the air. Hey, you can't talk about women's shoes.
Yeah, your man card would have been revoked.
This is a sports station. Right, that's the way it is.
Trust me when I tell you walking in stilettos is a sport in itself.
Yeah, 7:59. We'll take our last break. We'll be right back. An excellent company. They do excellent work. If you do have roof problems, they're the ones you should be calling. By the way, 8:01, this is BS in the Morning. I am Brad. She is Shelley. And we heard the Hawthorne Inn ad, which Shelley does a nice job on. If you want to go to Hawthorne Inn, if you've never been there before, it is great. The food is wonderful. It's it's a destination place. It's not the kind of place you're going to drive by on the highway. You have to be going there. But it is worth the drive. You can check out snarfitup.com. That's SNARF, snarfitup.com. And you can get a $25 voucher for $12. In other words, $25 worth of Hawthorne Inn food for only $12. It is great. You'll love it. Rarely do I ever hear anybody say, well, I went to Hawthorne and it wasn't that great. Everybody talks about, oh my God, it's such good food, me included. And boy, the steaks are good. If you ever had one of their steaks, check it out. Right, Shelley?
I love their flash fried spinach.
I've never,
oh my God, it's delicious.
How do they flash fry it? What, they like put it in a pan?
I don't know. I don't cook.
I don't know. If they fry it, they like drop it in it's like French fry kind of deal, right?
Well, they
drop
flash
it in,
and then they fry. Flash fried.
Right. You know what? We forgot. I mean, we're going to get in trouble. NARP is going to send us another nasty gram. NARP, the North American Radio Producers Association. We got cited for certain content of our show, and they made us run the disclaimer. So here's the disclaimer. We're sorry we forgot to run it at the beginning of the show. We'll run it at the end of the show today.
Or get emergency help if you feel faint, confused, very sleepy, or very hot, or agitated, acting clumsy, breathing more slowly than normal, or have stiff muscles. This is not a full list of risks and side effects.
Okay, now we got that out of the way.
Sounds like a woman going through the change.
You said that. I didn't. And then
I mean, it does.
Just a few minutes ago, when we were talking about this, I said that President Trump in the presidential limousine did was the pace car at the Daytona 500, and off the air, Shelley said to me,
"You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier."
And I said, "I can't believe you said that to me."
Well, actually, the lying dog-faced pony soldier, that isn't that what that means.
Whatever. The presidential candidates are having some issues. There's a story this morning that all this stuff is surfacing about Bloomberg, and it's actually sort of interesting that last week he came out and he was on a radio show saying that that the stop and frisk, the thing he did when he was the mayor of New York, where they just randomly pick people, the police would just put them up against the wall and frisk them. His comment was, they did too few minorities and too many white people. And then today it comes out that in a speech he did a few years back, he said that I could teach anybody, even people in this room, no offense intended, to be a farmer. He says it's a process. You dig a hole, you put a seed in, you put dirt on top, add water, up comes the corn. You could learn that. You think the farmers are mad at him now?
Wow, that was a little...
Why would you say something like that?
No, considering those are the people that they're trying to reach.
Well, of course, but why? I mean...
Way to PO the farmers there. Good job.
How condescending to the farmers.
I know, right?
Yeah. Hey, are you a farmer? Yeah, it's nothing to it. All you do is you dig a hole, you put a seed in, you put dirt on top and water, and up comes the corn. Yeah, it's simple as that.
Yeehaw.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for another BS in the morning. We are done. If you want to listen to the show,
another one in the books. How lovely.
And put yourself through torture, you can go onto our website, and or you can go to I think we switched podcast providers. And it was down last week for a while, but it should be back up again. So if you go to Apple Podcast, it's there. If you go to our website, bsinthemorning.show, and you just click on the podcast link, it's there as well too. So anyway, we're back in business as far as the podcasts are concerned. And I already got grief for something I said on the podcast that somebody took me to task over. So how bad is that?
What'd they say?
I can't tell you.
Well, tell me off air. You can't say stuff like that and then not tell me.
They twisted my words.
Oh, that's never happened before.
They said, you said this, and I'm going like, okay, whatever. And it was something, and it wasn't that something they heard on the air. It was in the podcast. So I got to watch what I say on the air, because it ends up in the podcast.
You think?
I'm not like you, Shelley.
If I have to watch what I say on the air, you have to watch what you say on the
Shelley,
air.
in the course of our, 7-8 months on the air here, Shelley's already gotten us in trouble with the NARPA people. That's why we have to run the disclaimer. So anyway, that's going to do for us. Don't forget, check out Hawthorne Inn, snarfitup.com, SNARF. Check out our website. Don't forget, we are broadcasting live from the Allen's Tree Service Studios. You still have time to call them before the next wave of bad weather comes in with ice and snow. We're going to get it. It's still, we're only about 55% through winter. You don't want to have the roof fall in when the tree hits it. You don't want to be like my brother-in-law that has the big old limb go through his roof and end up smashed into their bed. You don't want that. Call Allen's Tree Service. They'll come out. They'll take a look at your trees. They'll tell you what you need. Could be just some slight trimming. Or like in Shelley's case, they say, hey, every tree you have needs to come down. So anywhere.
And that's pretty much what they said, too.
Most people are going to be somewhere in between. or they could say, hey, everything's just fine. Thanks for having us over. Could be that as well, too. You never know.
Yes, it could. They are experts at their craft.
Right. That's going to do it, Shelley. It's time for, and you know what you always do. Go ahead, say it.
The most important man in St. Charles County steps up to the microphone and says, what does the fox say? Thank you, Brad. Caleb, you're up, honey.